Hola Chicas! Welcome to 20 Questions With, a podcast in conjunction with Latinitas Magazine. Latinitas Magazine is a strong voice for Latina and POC youth, which is why the hosts of 20 Questions With are all young Latinas who are looking to gain experience in innovative and creative fields just like you. In each episode, you'll hear from striking individuals who are inspiring today's youth with their passion, motivation, and grit. Today, join Angelique Hechavarria as she sits down and asks 20 questions with Michelle Olvera from BoldLatina Digital Group. Before we get started, here's what you should know. For nearly 20 years, Michelle has worked the front and back lines of startups. Michelle was an early employee of StarMedia Network, the first Latinx Spanish-speaking digital brand to initial public offering. Michelle felt inspired and, in turn, built BoldLatina Digital Group in 2016. According to BoldLatina's website, they are a pioneering, Latina-owned, independent media platform. Through their storytelling, they aim to empower Latina readers to make sense of the modern world and its future. BoldLatina covers a range of topics such as culture, politics, wellness, wealth, and you can even tune in to the BoldLatina podcast as well. With that said, let's go ahead and get started with today's show. Thanks for joining us on this episode of 20 Questions With. I'm Angelique Hechavarria, and I'm here with today's guest, Michelle Olvera, and they are the founder and CEO of BoldLatina, an online publication dedicated to Latinx stories. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Angelique, for having me.
It's a pleasure. So our first question, what inspired you to be the founder and CEO of BoldLatina?
It's always a great question to ask because every year that I'm at it with BoldLatina is a year that I really enjoy and was made to do this. So I started BoldLatina a couple years ago, but it iterated from another brand that I called Super Daily. And my inspiration has always been about elevating Latina voices to the mainstream, sharing our stories, gaining visibility. Because when I was 20, when I was 30, I didn't see our stories out there. And if our stories were out there, they were more stereotyped. They were very, very nuanced. Really didn't paint the whole picture of what today's U.S. Latina is like. My inspiration has always been to share and tell stories, but also relay the news, as it's important for us to have a point of view and an angle on how we deliver news as well.
And this is actually my first time of hearing BoldLatina. So for those who haven't heard of BoldLatina, what is it about?
So BoldLatina is a digital media platform. We're mainly editorial. We provide news and Latinx, Latina stories to today's U.S. Latina. And also, we're going global. As we noticed, many of our readers are in Latin America, especially in South America. So again, we're about sharing news and stories and also perspectives of Latinas today, of the modern Latina.
That's actually something that I really love about your articles is that they often come in Spanglish.
A select number of our editorial articles are in Spanglish because there's sort of a movement of many of us English-dominant Latinas who want to speak more Spanish. We want to sort of reclaim our identity and reclaim culture and reclaim language as part of that culture. So we feel like a lot of the content that we've provided, which has been in Spanglish, but also Spanish translation of the English, has really taken off, and we hope to provide more.
And as the founder and CEO of BoldLatina, what does a typical day look like for you?
Oh, wow. As a CEO and founder, it can vary. Building a media startup, an early stage company, a young company has its ups and downs. And so what I usually share with those that are aspiring to grow their own company, whether it's a media, whether it's a direct-to-consumer product brand, is to be ready for the ups and downs, for the variables in our day. Most of my work is centered around leading a team and ensuring that I'm empowering my team and leaving it to them to execute. I really don't like micromanaging. I love just trusting my team to execute on work and also ensuring that our vision, our mission, and our values are in place along each article that we publish, along each social media post, along each interview like today, and just ensuring that everything stays aligned with our original core mission, vision, and values.
Yes, and actually I have a couple of friends who aspire to become a CEO, so I was wondering, what advice would you give to them?
I would say that when you become a founder and eventually a CEO, where you're running a team, where you're leading your company, into market, understand that this is a people role, that you're going to have to deal with all kinds of personality types. So understanding how to manage your team is really important. I know I haven't been perfect. I've had failures and then have understood and have lessons learned that I need to be better at CEOing. So one of the things I usually say is this is a people role. Understand that, and everything else will flow in place.
Yes. And are you specifically involved with any other organizations or industries, or does BoldLatina have any specific partnerships? And if so, which ones?
Oh, absolutely. I believe for short-term projects, we've been involved with a number of nonprofit organizations like Latinitas, and also out of Texas, Austin, the Forte Foundation. We were involved with them on a great campaign to push more Latinas into MBA programs. The industry that we're in is the Hispanic or Latino or Latinx, however you identify, market. And so we have a lot of like-minded organizations and partners that we hope and plan to work with more deeply.
Yes. May I ask, what is your favorite part of your career?
Wow, I believe I'm a creator at heart, like many of us. I love creating. I love building. I love making and pushing our ideas out there, and then receiving feedback and engagement. So I would say the favorite part of my career is the creation part. I have to put my hat on for it because remember, I'm also a CEO. I run a team. I oversee mission, vision, and values. But I also have another hat. I have this creator side to me.
Yes. And when you were younger, what did you envision yourself doing?
Oh, wow. When I was younger, I felt like there were so many things open to me, which was amazing because I know that many Latinas don't grow up having exposure to a lot of places and spaces and industries. But I had dreams to be on advertising row. I wanted to be an advertising executive. I wanted to be behind commercials. I wanted to be behind print magazine ads. And I also wanted to be an architect. I don't know where that came from. Maybe it had something to do with me as a Latina playing with Legos when I was very young. I loved building things. I also wanted to be in the gaming industry, believe it or not. I was huge on gaming. I had an Atari. I know I'm probably dating myself here, but I had an Atari set. I later had a PS2. I was totally infatuated and obsessed with the gaming world. And it's funny because life comes full circle. I'm sort of doing a little bit of all those things.
Yeah, growing up, I loved having my Nintendo.
Oh, yeah. Nintendo too. Okay.
I felt so cool with it. Oh my gosh.
Well, believe it or not, I had, even before, game consoles came about, I was at the arcade. I used to slam down quarters in front of all the guys and challenge them and say, I'm up next. Here are my quarters. That was way back, girls.
Switching gears now, have you faced any challenges to get to where you are now?
Oh, absolutely. I've been doing what I've been doing as an entrepreneur, not just in the digital media space, but I've also launched other types of products and projects and, business failures, ups and downs, and some successes along the way. I would say that absolutely, I faced a ton of challenges. I think no path is linear. And you have to be ready for what things get thrown your way. But I also do know as a woman, as a Latina on top of that, There are challenges and access issues, for many Latina small business owners, as well as even technology companies. So the challenges are there. It's just how you handle them, how you handle the setbacks.
Yes, and do you have a personal philosophy that has helped you in guiding your way through these challenges?
Yes, I would say, and it's come through checking my own values and understanding what makes my soul just sing. Always go back to what makes you feel good, what makes you feel right, what aligns your values, what makes you connected in terms of your soul.
Yes, and this is something that I also wonder about. What are your thoughts on Latinx representation in media and the progress towards diversity and inclusion?
Oh, wow. There's so many thoughts I have here, but I can think of why I started BoldLatina to begin with was because of the lack of representation in media, but in particular digital media. Many online magazines, you didn't see Afro-Latinas, you didn't see indigenous Latinas. That was very much lacking in my day to today, where we're seeing a lot more representation. But I still feel that there's need for improvement across the board, especially when it comes to owning and writing the stories that are out there. I believe I would love to see more production companies owned and operated by Black, Indigenous, people of color, Latinx, Afro-Latina. I've also liked to see more ownership of media platforms out there. So I know I am not the only Latina-owned digital media company. I see others coming up along the way behind me. And so I encourage anyone who wants to launch an online magazine, launch any type of media venture, to go for it.
And how do you combat anxiety in your personal and or workplace?
Oh, wow. Anxiety is big. Well, I think anxiety can come from, generational trauma, but also our fears, our possible challenges with imposter syndrome. I mean, many factors can contribute to anxiety today that we know of. How I deal with anxiety, and I do deal with it, is I set up best practices for myself personally that involve like mental calmness. I am a daily yoga practitioner, so I practice meditation and yoga, but it also goes hand in hand with taking care of myself. So self-care with my diet. I'm a plant-based eater. I stay away from the foods that might trigger depression and anxiety. When it comes to the workplace, I encourage my staff to really take care of themselves. We're in a space in media where there's constant overload of information, disinformation, and misinformation that we have to filter through. A lot of social media can be toxic to you too. So I always encourage my staff, my team, as well as myself to detox from social media, from media. And it's kind of counter because we want engagement from our readers, our audience, and ourselves, but we also need to take much needed breaks. So, taking a weekend off, doing off the grid, just not looking at your phone and TV at the same time. Every couple weeks, just have a week of no social media. And I know it's really hard to do because it's embedded in our lives, but it's also really necessary for our mental health.
Yes, and I was wondering, what's the first and or weirdest job you've ever had?
Oh, wow. This goes way back. So I started as a child care caretaker. I was a babysitter and was pretty popular among the family. I made my first earnings through child care. My first real payroll job, like I had an employer that was paying me with checks and I had to pay taxes. I got out of high school. Well, it was actually my junior year and senior year in high school. I had a dream job, and that was as an ice cream scooper at Baskin Robbins. It was the best job, and it made me pretty popular too.
Well, I actually also had a job in high school, which I really, really appreciated because it gives you like that first experience and your first earnings.
I learned responsibility. I think I learned a lot of discipline and responsibility from that, having my first job. But I also had role models. I had my mother and my father who were hardworking, so we're built up on work ethic. Weirdest job? I don't know. Gosh, I don't think I've had a weird job. I kind of enjoyed all my jobs.
Well, actually, for me, my first job, which was actually from my high school, I'm a senior now, but when I was a freshman in high school, we had a school store that had like snacks and food, like pizza, like little stuff like that. And I was a cashier, but we live in New England and there's rats. So there would be rats. We would see rats sometimes. And sometimes he would make us like set up traps or like clean up after the rats so for me, that was the weirdest one. Switching gears now. What resources would you recommend to girls and or communities from the organization you are a part of?
Compared to when I was a lot younger, there wasn't much. So today is a different story and it's promising and there's so much available out there. I would say, first of all, Latinitas is one of them, magazine. I think there's so much to come out of digital media companies today that are targeting and want you to come to their sites today. Resources, it depends. Are you looking for a job? Are you looking for entrepreneurial advice? You could definitely come over and jump over to BoldLatina, of course. And, I think it's really easy to find resources on social media too. So it depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah, I agree. And definitely LinkedIn is something I found to be really, really useful in terms of social media.
Oh, absolutely. LinkedIn is a great source. I happen to think that LinkedIn it's like Facebook on steroids, but professional.
And what does true leadership mean to you?
Another great question that I have to think about a little because it's evolved so much. So again, I've mentioned the importance of people. People come first. And it's not something that I gravitated to in the beginning. I just thought I could just launch a product, launch a platform, launch articles or, publish articles. It goes beyond that. Again, you have to be willing to lead a group of people, a team. You have to build culture top down. A lot of diversity inclusion issues today are from a lack of leadership having a top-down approach. And leaders and CEOs and founders today need to have transparency. They need to be willing to talk about hard issues and also envision better workplaces today for efforts of diversity and inclusion. So leaders today need to have empathy. I believe, again, some of the best leaders that I've known to come have been women because we have this built-in empathy and sympathy for people already. So just remember, leadership's about people.
And do you have a favorite story or article from BoldLatina?
Oh gosh, I have a handful of them. I think the one that stands out to me is one that was written for us by Prisca Morca Rodriguez. And it was titled My Mommy's Hands or Mi Mami's Manos. And it's just an essay about the appreciation she had for her mother and her hardworking mother and how her mother's hands were strong and just like you don't see a manicured hand, you see a hand that has carried 3 sisters and brother, has worked hard. I resonated with that piece from Prisca's point of view because my mother was a laborer. She worked in a candy factory and her hands were some of the most gentle yet hardworking hands I've ever seen.
I actually feel that way too because my grandma, she worked hard her whole life and her hands are the same way, but I admire them so much. Yeah, so I've also noticed on your LinkedIn, you mentioned that you're a book lover. Do you have a favorite book or author?
Absolutely. I think it's coincidental that you asked that today because BoldLatina has partnered with HBO Max to push a documentary movie style on Isabel Allende. And so my very first novel that I read, that I was of age to read, was Isabel Allende's House of Spirits. It's a magical realism, wonderful story about people power, believe it or not, in Chile. And her words just flew off the page for me, and ever since I've been a fan. I've read like maybe 3 or 4 of her novels.
Oh, wow. I should check that out.
Yeah. If you're into magic realism, brujeria, Isabel Allende definitely paints beautifully with her words.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because I've also been wanting to read more the Spanish language, but I know one that is Colombian that's called 100 Years of Solitude.
Oh, yes. I haven't read that. That's on my list, actually.
Yeah, me too.
I haven't read it yet.
What do you like to do in your free time?
I was looking at this question. I was like, do I get free time? Sometimes you don't. But when I do, again, going back to my suggestion to everyone to take a weekend off, don't be on the computer. Don't be on your laptop. Don't be on your mobile phone. I really like to explore. I really like to take long walks. And because I live in wonderful San Francisco, I have so many sightseeing opportunities here. I was born and raised here, so I know where to go. I like to walk along long stretches of road, hikes, really get outdoors and in touch with nature, because so much of our world today is indoors or digital, that getting outside in nature is really a must.
Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years, I will probably be, I'm hoping, retired. We'll see where that goes. But I really hope to have BoldLatina, made a huge impact. We're already a player in the digital media space, but I hope that we continue to grow, that we continue to maybe have a global reach, and that I am happy and my mental health and my physical state are in good shape.
What is one thing you hope BoldLatina accomplishes?
My biggest goal is if we can just impact one person with an article, an editorial piece, an essay, a bit of news that we've pushed out there, I'm happy at that. Yeah. And I think we've accomplished that.
Mm-hmm. I would say that too. And did you have a mentor or someone who inspired you growing up?
This is a great question. And I have thought about this a lot over the past couple of years. There have been mentors and champions of what I do, that have gone in and out of my lives, but not really someone consistent. So I really think it's important to build relationships and keep those relationships going. One of the things I tend to see is I was my own mentor. I was my own champion, and you have to be. Everyone should consider themselves their own mentor and champion first. Have that courage and have that perseverance cultivated within yourself. And then I would say, when it comes to work ethics, when it comes to, again, perseverance, I think the one person I looked up to or was inspired by was my mom. I think that's for everyone, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, but it's so true. It's so true. And the strong women from generations back, stories of my own grandmother, my great-grandmother, who were strong women from El Campo. It's so amazing. Thank you, Michelle, for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you, Angelique.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
If you're interested in pursuing a career in media, make sure to visit us at latinitasmagazine.org for more information. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of 20 Questions With. We'll see you next time.